Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
A massive warm welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, if you listen to as many podcasts as I do, then you might have heard of a company called FreshBooks, because they do sponsor many of my favourite shows out there, and probably some of yours too. FreshBooks is a cloud-based accounting software service designed for owners of the types of small client service businesses that send invoices to clients and get paid for their time and expertise. But it's the story behind FreshBooks that really captured my attention. CEO and co-founder Mike McDerment, he essentially created a company within his company to completely re-platform his product, as well as up their game as a company overall. But why did he do this? It's an incredibly inspirational story to tell, which should inspire anyone interested in technology, startup and entrepreneurial journeys. But enough of me rambling, let's get him on the show. So buckle up, hold on tight, because it's time for me to beam your ears all the way to Toronto, Canada, to speak with Mike McDerment, the CEO and co-founder of FreshBooks. Welcome to the show, Mike. You're the CEO of a leading provider of online bookkeeping software called FreshBooks. Now, I've heard your ads on various podcasts, and the service seems to be aimed at self-employed professionals. And recently, you've recorded your 10 millionth user, which is a phenomenal achievement on its own. But for anyone that is new to yourself and what you do, can you offer a brief overview of exactly what FreshBooks is?
Sure thing. So what FreshBooks is ridiculously easy to use invoicing and accounting software in the cloud. One of the things that makes us different is that we're designed not for every small business owner, but for those who get paid for their time and expertise. And that enables us just make the product, keep it really simple. So, like lawyers, I like to think of dog walkers, a lot of designers and developers, folks who have billable time and need to invoice. Yeah, you can use us on all your devices and what have you. We've been around for some time now, as you say. It's actually in 2014 that we passed 10 million users, which was an exciting milestone. We've grown the business quite a bit, sort of tens of millions of dollars, almost 300 people, and continuing to clip along at a high rate of growth.
Fantastic. Now, but what I find fascinating about your personal story, and one of the big reasons I invited you on the show today, is that your tech startup journey of highs, lows, and of course the notorious grind that comes, will be so much value to people on their own personal startup journey. So after 10 years as an entrepreneur who arguably built a successful company, the first 3 years of which were ran from your parents' basement, I believe, you'd reached a point where you had to change as technologies had changed. The competition was catching up and their customers would soon be looking for more too. But can you expand on this a little to bring your listeners to bring the listeners up to speed and tell us why you felt the urge to pivot? I mean, was it an instinct or a tingle in your spidey senses?
I think a couple levels. I won't get too wrapped around the axle pivot, but I think we decided to evolve in an aggressive way. And I'll give that a little more color. So started the business when I saved over an invoice by accident one day. I was running a design firm, like, Pixels, and helping small business owners get creative materials and do marketing together. Built it up 3.5 years in the parents' basement, sort of 10 years in, learning everything from first principles. So I hadn't worked at a product company before, like Google was pretty young at that time. It's a very, very different world. But as we grew and scaled the company and, beyond 10 million users and all these kinds of things, well, let's just put it this way. When we started the company, it was actually 2003. And it was before things like Ruby on Rails, and basically before all the technologies that are commonly used today to develop, cloud-based technologies existed, right? So we were like building our own frameworks as opposed to having ones available to us. And for those of you who are more technical. And so between the advances in technology and what I would say are the changes in consumer behavior, going to a website, like an all-text website, was kind of like, Flash was cool back when we started out. So it was, a long time ago. And, today you pull out your mobile phone. By the way, those didn't exist when we started. And you click a button and a cab comes and shows up, or food is delivered to your door. Over that decade, a lot has changed in terms of consumer expectation, user experience design, and these kinds of things. And so we had built our technology, again, like rolling a lot of our own things and writing what I call a lot of founder code. None of us were professional engineers. And so we ended up doing something which hopefully I can bring everyone along. This won't be too technical, but there's generally a well-designed software application has kind of layers to it. It's kind of architecture. You keep the things the customer might interact with, like the pixel and how things look, separate from the database and other pieces. And to make it shorthand, we had parts of our front end technology that were intermingled with our back end, and so really what happened was, in about 2014, a couple of years ago, I was starting to feel like, hey, I'm sitting in my 2014 self. If I ask myself the question, like, are we set up to win in 2019, like 5 years out?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure, right? The world has changed. The technology has changed. We're not really benefiting from it. It's hard to change our platform and adjust it. And really, there's many facets to technology, but ours was, I really believe the user experience needed to change. That was the part that we kind of could not iterate on in a way that most technology companies could, because our technology wasn't set up the right way. So, long story short, we embarked on a journey to completely rewrite and redesign and reimagine our application. I think, kind of relevant are some interesting ways of how we did that, but maybe I'll just launch into those. Situation was we had built the market leading product, so we're based in North America. For you UK listeners, like Sage is a big deal for small business accounting software. In North America, it is Intuit QuickBooks. And North America is a huge market. We're actually based in Canada, but serving, most of our customers are here. We have a lot of customers in the UK as well, a lot of customers in the English-speaking world, paying customers in 120 plus countries. Situation was we had become the market-leading product for self-employed professionals and their teams. And number two, in terms of revenues, which we still are, to Intuit QuickBooks in North America. So we'd had amazing success. But again, I was sitting there saying, like, I don't know in 5 years if the constraints we have in terms of how we can make the product manifest for people in terms of design is going to cut it. And so we were then presented with what is fundamentally an existential question for a software company. Do you re-platform, or do you methodically kind of refactor and improve in like small steps your existing technology? And it's kind of the golden rule of software companies that you don't rewrite. You just don't do it. And there are some really good reasons for this. First of all, it's really hard, like very hard. And most, if you go out in the world, like most quote unquote IT projects and technical projects, they actually fail. They never complete. And so not only is it like the hardest kind of project to run, the odds are completely stacked against you for finishing it all. And we'd actually tried a couple times and sort of failed. Yeah. So we knew about that. Also, it takes time, and however long you think it's going to take a lot longer. And so, if you think it's going to take 2 years, which our team did at the start, I figured it would take 7.5. So I was like, no, we're not right? Because we don't have 7.5. Because while you're putting your heads down, not building new stuff on your current platform, your competition's catching up. So another problem with rewriting software is if you take those multi years to build the new platform, when you wake up on the other side, it's a new competitive landscape, and you've lost a lot of time and space. And in fact, like many companies never recover from these efforts, right? They just don't. So, those are a whole bunch of really good reasons why not to do it. And then I guess there's some other ones that I want to call out in our case is, I don't know if, FreshBooks is really well known, like kind of world-class known for customer service. That's, we love serving folks, and in the same ilk as Zappos and Rackspace. If you call us, you're going to get a live person on the phone, speedy responses by email. Big part of what small business owners want. Hey, I don't need help every day, but when I need it, I want it. Our brand and the trust we have with our customers means a lot. So replatforming is also a great opportunity where you can make mistakes. Like actually to build a new platform, to do it right, like you want to take risks, the kind of risks that an existing brand kind of can't take without seriously risking undermining the confidence of your customer base, right? Whether it be outages or the potential for lost data and things like this. And so, we were cognizant of that. And, and basically for all these reasons, A, you don't replatform, and B, if you do, you have some inherent challenges built in there around you're afraid of messing with your customers, and your team is just laboring under this huge pressure. So that's kind of the situation. And we had decided to replatform, but we still had these lingering problems of we want the team to come up with a really great way to do things and innovate, but how do you create the conditions where a team can take big risks without risking the brand? So I'm belaboring this point a little, but it's really important. And what we ended up doing, which I think is the novel part of the story, is we said, hey, we thought about just launching like FreshBooks in say Germany, which is not a market we serve today. And there's some really good reasons why you'd want to test international in a market like Germany. And so we said, hey, maybe we could do that. And ultimately I was like, we could do that. The competition might see us there, right? But, it's an approach we could take. But accounting software is pretty localized, so you might build the right thing for Germany and not necessarily for your core markets. Long story short, what we decided to do was to create another company. In fact, another brand. And this other brand was called BillSpring. And we put it on, we created a new logo. We created a new website. We put it on a different URL. We even got lawyers and created new user agreements, incorporated a company, like separate, like all these things for this other company, BillSpring, that was not FreshBooks. And what that got us was a playground to take massive risks and not be beholden to what is the FreshBooks brand. It also got us a place where we could build and test things and get real live data for how the application was performing. Because another problem with building a new software platform, and you've probably experienced this before, like version 2 is sometimes, it's like the sophomore album, like it's worse than the first one, right?
I love that.
You kind of can't have that. So what we did was, we had this other company, BillSpring, and we built the new application there. We tested it, and then when it was ready and we felt confident in it, we brought it over, and it became sort of the new FreshBooks. And so, that is the journey we went on, and some of the rationale that we went through. And I guess my story's a really long one now. Oh my God.
You're right in what you say, though, that so much has changed. I mean, only today we're looking at the 10th anniversary of the iPhone. 10 years ago there was no iPhone. I was watching a video earlier of Microsoft saying $500 for a new phone. That's never going to work. No keyboard. And look where we are now. And I think really it seems for any business to survive now, it must continuously evolve. But ironically, many users are resistant to change. So were you worried that upgrading your entire product could run the risk of upsetting legacy users who just wanted everything to stay the same?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love that question because I think what we decided to do says a lot about FreshBooks and our dedication to customer service. And so I don't know if you know what we did, but let me tell you. We had a massive install base. I forgot to mention that. Like, that's another reason to not replatform is like you have a massive install base. What we do is kind of mission critical for the customers that we have, and people hate change, right? So even if the other thing is like by all accounts better, that doesn't mean people will want to change, right? You don't want to upgrade OS, or, have the new, like, anyhow. So we kind of recognize that. And we also recognize that we're serving business customers who are tight on time. It's a subscription business. And, from a purely financial standpoint, it's like, not only do we want to not upset our customers emotionally, but there's no sense in losing a customer who's happy because we push them to a new thing and the experience goes, it wasn't what they expected or what have you. So what we decided to do was basically offer our customers control, I guess, and choice over not only would they go to the new platform, but if so, when. Yeah. And gave them the ability, if they went to the new one, to roll back to the original. So we now have FreshBooks Classic, which is the one that we built the business on, and still has. I mean, today it even has the lion's share of our customers, but that's actually kind of, I don't know how much longer that's going to last. Good news. And then we call New FreshBooks, where all new signups go to, and then existing FreshBooks Classic customers have the option to move to. And so we thought that, hey, creating a scenario where it was your choice, it was really easy when you chose, but if you got there and you really hated it, you could roll back, was a good place to be. And so far, I feel like we've been rewarded in that strategy. Creating the conditions where people feel safe and have the option to roll back. And even if they roll back, we hope one day they'll return to the new thing.
So as someone with my own business, doing my own thing out there, I don't think the fear will ever leave, but it does keep you on your toes. Essentially, I'm a writer and a podcaster guy, and accounting is my worst nightmare because I'm just not a numbers guy. But I'm curious, what are the significant challenges that you see the growing army of self-employed professionals out there that are actually struggling with?
Well, I think the number one thing, and so, just to go back further in my story, I feel like I am just like you. Yeah. And I was, I worked by myself, getting paid for my time and expertise, and, was a one-person army for a long time. And that's, what I ultimately built FreshBooks to help me with. And so if I take myself back to that time, I'm not sure things have changed too much. I think what was true then, or at least what I felt, is all I have is my time. Yeah. I have my client relationships, okay, and I have a need to learn and be kind of, ahead on things, and that's hard to balance all that, right? And so really, it does kind of come back to time. And so I think what I get excited about is there are, and FreshBooks is but one example, but lots of great new products and services out there that really, if you put them together in the right way, you can really elevate where your time is and where your head needs to go. Because if you're thinking about preparing for a great interview and then you got to follow up and make a change on an invoice in an Excel spreadsheet that's broken, it's hard to it feels, it's even more material. I feel like today in the business I'm running, it's what altitude is your head living at? And if you keep getting dragged back down to the wrong altitude, you're not being your best you. And so I think that's the constant struggle, right? And we get more specific about it, but at a high level, that's it. Am I applying myself in the most impactful way at all times? And am I making the most of the available time that I do have?
It's interesting you said that you feel just like I am. And you mentioned the exact word that I was going to say, time. And it really is. As a writer guy and podcaster guy, I don't want to be thinking about numbers and spreadsheets. It's like my worst nightmare. Somebody just look after that because that's their expertise, But for anyone listening that's interested in FreshBooks, what would you say the target audience is, and how many countries do you currently serve? I think you mentioned about 120 earlier on there. Is that right?
We have paying customers in 120 countries. We're sort of a big deal in countries like the U.S., Canada, the U.K., Australia. There'll be some of our larger markets, South Africa. And the target market again is here's our belief. It's a strategic choice. We're not trying to serve every small business owner. We don't do retail. We don't do restaurants. We don't do manufacturing. But if you're a podcast and writing guy, maybe it's an electrician, or maybe you're a social media consultant, or you're an IT, whether it be an IT professional. These are some really creative professionals like designers, videographers, web designers, IT professionals. These are some of our really, really core segments, and people who just love the product and refer it on.
Now, traditional financing has long been an Achilles heel for small business owners, but a recent post I read by yourself talked about how innovation by entrepreneurs is giving small business owners financing options that they've never ever had before. So can you expand on that post a little and help the listeners visualize the digital transformation and what it's having on this aging industry?
So the ability to secure financing, your bank is classically what you think of. Go to the bank, ask for a loan, right? Another one might be the use of credit cards. There's go speak with family, these kinds of options. When you're a small business, like securing financing, really the only time you can is when you don't need it, right? That's kind of the nature of things. And so what that post was about is there's been a new emerging group of financial technology companies that are focused on lending and focused on lending to small business. And what I had to say about this category, I think there are folks who have concerns about some of the actors in these categories. Yeah. And I think there are some that are perhaps less above board than others, right? And I think there's work to do as a category to make the landscape consistent and these kinds of things. But I will say there are some really solid and credible options that are emerging. And what I like about it is that it provides choice. Okay, so as a small business owner, I think having choice in products and services is important, because I feel like as a market, historically, there's been relatively few choices for small business. Enterprise has lots of choice. Consumers have lots of choice. Small business, relatively less. And so I'm excited about some of the players that are emerging and the fact that they exist. I think and I think there are some really credible actors in there. So if you really believe in your venture, and whether it's short-term capital to cover cash flow or a longer-term investment, being able to have an option that you didn't have before is important. I think it's incumbent on you, if you're taking that money, to do your homework and understand what it is that you're getting and what the rates really are and those kinds of things. And I think sometimes people don't do enough of that. They just say, oh, it's money and it was easy, and they get themselves into trouble. But I feel like that's on the small business owner to some extent, of not doing their homework and understanding, that financing it comes with serious expectations. But does that answer your question? That was the article.
Absolutely. Now, I consider myself very fortunate because I get to speak with startups and hear about startup scenes all over the world in places that you wouldn't necessarily associate. For example, Tel Aviv and Ukraine. I know I've got incredible startup scenes over there at the moment. But you are part of a vibrant startup scene in Toronto. I mean, do you think that scene gets the recognition that it deserves?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But I think it's going to get more and more. It is one of the top, I think the Startup Genome or what have you, I could be behind by a year on my data here, but it's like a top 10 startup city in the world. And as just a global city, again, I kind of use North America as a thing, but you have LA, New York, Toronto's the third largest city between the US and Canada. Like, it is a big deal. Yeah. It is a massive source of, think about the financial recession. Like, we have such a strong financial services ecosystem here, right? The 2008 recession was Canada came out like almost like Switzerland, like it's like a safe place, well-governed banking and this kind of thing. And so, why do I mention that? I don't think people understand what a big deal Toronto really is. And what's exciting to me is I've seen the community and the ecosystem evolve over the last decade plus that I've been building this company, going from a time when you could barely get a couple companies together to now there are hundreds. There are, whether Amazon's got a 500-person shop and they're hiring 200 engineers here now. And there's just, there's some of the big players are coming, and it's really, you're getting capital coming in a way that it never was before. These are all the ingredients to build, a really globally competitive, technology community environment. I think we're first generation, and that's where the Valley has a massive leg up on us. But I'm hopeful in another couple turns, this will be a strong part of, frankly, at least in Canada here, our national economy and a big contributor to the global economy. Because the thing about tech companies is, you can kind of be in one place and serve many, and as demonstrated by FreshBooks.
Absolutely. And I do think it will continue and continue to strengthen, because I do get an influx of guests from Canada at the moment, which can only be a great thing. But if anyone is listening to this show today and they're inspired by your story, what would you say is the best advice that you would like to pass down to someone on their startup journey?
You only need two things to be successful in business, which is shared values and alignment. So FreshBooks is a very values-driven company, but in my experience in business, working with people who share your values, and not just inside your building and on your team, but who you bring on as financial partners or who you partner with as other companies. Like, culture and values really matter, and being disciplined about working with folks who feel like a good fit and a good complement is important. And so the other part there, that's especially important when you're operating a company. The other part is alignment. And I think where I see people who, are made up of good stuff get into trouble is when they're not aligned on where they're going to. And I think that's the job of, you as a leader and a member of a company, to ensure that you're always hiring people who share your values, and you're always working hard to make sure they're aligned. And maybe it's, your board members are aligned with you, or it's your partners are aligned with you. And, if you do those things and you rinse and repeat over enough time and you sustain that, I believe you can go very far.
Absolutely. But before I let you go, can I ask you to remind the listeners of where they can find the FreshBooks website and the best way to contact a member of your team if they have any questions about what they've heard today?
Yes, thank you for asking. So you can reach us for free and try FreshBooks out, also for free at freshbooks.com. And in terms of reaching us, we have live telephone support 12 hours a day, and depending on where you are in your location, and check the website for that, and email support, which generally have a response well south of sort of 2 hours. I'd encourage you to phone us. There's no call tree. You'll talk to a real live person right away and get a competent answer, and that's part of our promise. We love speaking to you by phone, but happy to do it by email if that's your preference.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for coming on today. Like we mentioned earlier, I know how important time is to you, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on today, and most importantly, sharing your story, because it really is an inspirational story that you've gone through there, and something that not many people would have been so brave to carry forward. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I think all too often we are guilty of looking at any successful business or person and think, they're so lucky, or I wish I could do that. But for the first 3 years there, Mike ran his business from his parents' basement, and he'd reached a point where he had to change as technologies had changed, and competition was catching up, and their customers would soon be looking for more. And Mike also had to think about what winning would look like 10 years out. And he came to the conclusion that it would take a radically new approach. From not just re-platforming the technology, but taking deliberate steps to lead in a new way, a different direction. So he did just that by creating a secret and a very real company within a company. I think there were so many life lessons to be learned here. And as my son always tells me, it's all about the grind, Dad. And for me, this episode highlights just that. So a big thank you for Mike coming on the show and sharing his story today. But you know what? We all have similar tales, and I want to hear them. So remember, you can email me anytime at techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. But ironically, I have my accounts to catch up on, so I'm off to send a few invoices now. But have no fear, I will return with some more great guests. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.